Hi everybody. I wanted to give you a brief video feedback on Forum 6.1. I've graded it and posted the feedback, but I wanted to just make a few comments. It was a really great discussion, and I'm hoping that this week, as you're reading about solutions for housing and design and modifications, that you're seeing some ways to address some of the things that were discussed in the forum. A couple of things I wanted to clarify. Somebody brought up the fact that there had been a Senate bill in Indiana that was intended to ensure home and community-based services, people who qualified for that those services were being provided in assisted living, and that might encourage people to leave their homes to get services. And I wanted to just clarify that that's really not the case, that bill is intended to make equitable the home and community-based services someone receives in their home. These are Medicaid eligible services to allow people to age in place, but that people could receive those same services that they were being provided on a par in assisted living facilities. So I wanted to emphasize that I don't think it's a driver that would move people to shift dwelling or move to assisted living to get services, because they would either already be receiving these services in their home prior to moving, or if they were newly eligible in assisted living, it would mean that they're only getting those services because they qualify, as they would have if they were in their own home. But I can see how you might see that as a potential enticement, I guess it were, to move. There were some really great topics brought up around the problems with accessibility and good design for housing in rural areas, issues with older adults' own attitudes, all of the things that go on, and the rest of your readings discuss about why making modifications or even being willing to pay for new design can be a challenge. And I think, as you will probably see this week, most of the research says that it really has to be a combination of education, legislation, and incentives that will make these changes in the market. There were also some really interesting questions raised about intergenerational living and what that might mean for good design in homes. From my perspective, it's only an even greater argument for building homes that are accessible lifelong. So very similar to the lifelong communities design that Dr. Stafford discussed, we're really talking about housing from that very same perspective. Any child could fall and break a leg and not be able to get up and down the stairs, as could an older adult. So many of us are looking at ways to think about housing from that perspective. And it's clearly easier and less costly to do these things from the beginning than to make these changes later. I also want to encourage all of you to read as many posts as you can. I know that it's a time issue, and you are squeezed and you're only required to read a couple of other students' posts, but there's really great information, and I will tell you there's a strong correlation between how much of the discussion people read and their overall grades in the courses. I see it in every class. So great work. And I look forward to seeing your papers on some solutions to these design issues and modification issues. And the other thing I noticed in this discussion is there are a lot of new policies that are being proposed both at the state and federal level and local level related to incentives for housing design, visitability, and home modifications, as well as some punitive kinds of legislation for not meeting those kinds of requirements. It sounds like a great capstone project to me, if any of you are thinking in the future about taking an issue and looking at how it's being addressed and some solutions for it. Looking at this array of various forms of incentives and or legislation to make things required and penalties if they're not met would be a really interesting capstone project. So just a hint. Anyway, good job everybody, and I'll look forward to reading your papers this week on design for improving housing accessibility. Take care.